The day I discovered my husband was secretly trying to take control of my home, I was standing in my kitchen, surrounded by moving boxes, holding a coffee cup, when a stranger called with news that shattered my life. Within minutes, I realized the two people I trusted most had been planning behind my back. My name is Claire Whitmore. My husband, Ethan, and I had been married for 12 years, and I believed we had built a happy life together. A week earlier, we had moved into our dream home, a beautiful colonial house with a large porch and a backyard where I planned to grow flowers and vegetables. Most of the down payment came from the inheritance my father left me after spending 30 years as a high school science teacher. Buying that house felt like honoring his memory. One afternoon, I received a call from Harold Bennett, the previous owner of the property. He apologized for accidentally leaving one hidden security camera connected to his cloud account. A recent notification had shown activity inside my home, and after watching the footage, he believed I needed to see it myself. He asked me to come alone and not tell Ethan. Trying to convince myself it was all a misunderstanding, I drove to Harold's house. He played the recording on his laptop. The video showed Ethan entering our living room with his mother, Margaret. They looked around confidently, as if they already owned the place. Then Margaret smiled and said, "Claire still believes this house belongs to both of you?" Ethan laughed and answered, "She trusts me." Those words hit me harder than anything else because they were true. I trusted him completely. They continued talking about my father's inheritance, refinancing the house, and paperwork that would eventually give Ethan legal control through a carefully hidden power of attorney clause. Margaret even said I would never notice because I never read the fine print. Sitting there, I realized my trust had become part of their plan. Harold handed me a copy of the footage on a USB drive and urged me to protect myself. I thanked him, drove home, and decided not to confront anyone. Instead, I would quietly gather evidence. That evening, I acted as if nothing had happened. Ethan asked about my trip, and I casually replied that the store had been busy. From that moment on, I watched everything. Ethan handled every financial document, while Margaret visited almost daily, often collecting the mail before I even saw it. Conversations changed whenever I entered the room, and little details I had ignored for years suddenly made perfect sense. A few days later, Ethan brought home refinance papers and assured me they were routine. Margaret encouraged me to sign quickly. I smiled and said I would read everything first. That brief hesitation was enough for me to notice the nervous look that crossed Ethan's face. Late that night, after everyone was asleep, I examined every page. Buried deep inside was exactly what I had seen on the video, a clause that would slowly give Ethan authority over decisions involving my property. They had expected me to sign without understanding what I was giving away. The next morning, I met with real estate attorney Marcus Hale. I showed him the video, the paperwork, and everything I had documented. After reviewing it all, he explained that while the paperwork appeared legal, it was designed to exploit trust. He immediately filed legal protections that prevented anyone from refinancing, transferring, or borrowing against my property without my personal approval. Marcus then suggested something I never expected. He told me to continue pretending everything was normal. The more comfortable Ethan and Margaret became, the more evidence they would create themselves. I followed his advice. I smiled, asked harmless questions, and acted like I was slowly agreeing to sign. As the days passed, Ethan grew increasingly confident. He openly discussed remodeling the house, using its equity for investments, and making future financial decisions on my behalf. The night before the signing, he hugged me while I washed dishes and quietly said that once everything was transferred, I would never even realize how it happened. Hidden in my pocket, a recorder captured every word. The following evening, Ethan arranged a candlelit dinner. Margaret arrived smiling, convinced they had already won. After dinner, Ethan placed the paperwork in front of me and slid a pen across the table. Just as I reached for it, the doorbell rang. Marcus entered with a court officer carrying official documents. Calmly, Marcus announced that the property had already been legally protected and that any attempt to transfer ownership or financial authority without my informed consent was impossible. Then he placed the evidence on the table: the security footage, the hidden clause, and finally the recording of Ethan admitting I would never realize when everything had been transferred. Silence filled the room. Ethan stared at me before quietly asking, "How long have you known?" "Long enough," I answered. Margaret tried insisting they had only been organizing family finances, but Marcus calmly replied that honest planning never requires deception or hidden paperwork. That night, Ethan packed 2 suitcases and left with his mother. Before walking out, Margaret warned that I would regret choosing a house over family. I looked around the home my father had made possible and answered, "Family protects you. They do not secretly plan to take what is yours." After they left, I stood alone in the quiet house. For the first time since moving in, it truly felt like home. The next morning, I called Harold to thank him again. He simply said, "Sometimes a house remembers the truth even when people try to hide it." Months later, I still live there. My garden is growing exactly as I imagined, and every morning I drink coffee on the porch my father would have loved. Losing my marriage hurt, but losing the house my father helped me build would have hurt even more. That experience taught me something I will never forget. Real love never depends on secrecy, hidden documents, or blind trust. Kindness is not weakness, and protecting yourself does not make you selfish. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is quietly uncover the truth before someone else rewrites your future.